Arthur Koestler's life was a tapestry of intellectual courage, creative genius, and a relentless quest for truth. This video shows in-depth exploration of his life lessons, focusing on his philosophical insights, critiques of totalitarianism, and reflections on human creativity and progress. 1. Seek truth beyond ideology. Arthur Koestler's journey from idealistic communist to staunch critic of totalitarianism provides a vivid lesson on the importance of seeking truth beyond ideological constraints. In the early 1930s, disillusioned by the inequalities he witnessed in Europe and inspired by Marxist ideals, Koestler joined the Communist Party. For a time, he believed in its promise of social justice and equality. However, his experiences, particularly during the Stalinist purges, shattered this faith. Witnessing the regime's brutal suppression of dissent and its betrayal of its own people, Koestler realized the stark gap between the theoretical ideals of communism and its oppressive realities. His novel Darkness at Noon is a masterful exploration of this disillusionment. It portrays the moral and psychological struggles of Rubashov, a committed revolutionary who becomes a victim of the very system he helped create. The novel critiques the idea that the ends justify the means, a justification often used by authoritarian ideologies to excuse atrocities. For Koestler, sacrificing individual ethics for collective goals leads to moral bankruptcy and dehumanization. This lesson is profoundly relevant in today's world, where ideologies, whether political, religious, or cultural, continue to polarize societies. Koestler teaches us that while ideologies can provide frameworks for understanding complex issues, they should never become rigid dogmas that suppress critical thinking. Blind allegiance to any belief system risks turning us into passive instruments of its agenda, rather than active agents of moral and intellectual inquiry. To seek truth beyond ideology, we must cultivate a mindset of intellectual independence. This involves questioning assumptions, evaluating evidence, and remaining open to diverse perspectives. Koestler's life encourages us to resist the allure of simplistic narratives and instead embrace the complexity of reality. It also reminds us that truth-seeking is an ongoing process, requiring humility, curiosity, and a willingness to revise our beliefs when faced with new information. In practical terms, we can apply this lesson by engaging with a variety of sources when forming opinions, avoiding echo chambers that reinforce pre-existing biases, and fostering dialogue with those who hold opposing views. By prioritizing truth over conformity, we can navigate life's complexities with greater clarity and integrity. 2. The power of intellectual honesty. Arthur Koestler's unwavering commitment to intellectual honesty was a cornerstone of his personal and professional life. This quality set him apart as a thinker and writer who was unafraid to confront inconvenient truths, even when they pertained to his own past. He admitted his errors, such as his early support for communism, with a rare humility that demonstrated the strength of his character and the depth of his intellectual integrity. Koestler's departure from the Communist Party wasn't just a personal decision, it was a public declaration of his refusal to compromise his principles. After witnessing the horrors of Stalin's regime, he became one of its most vocal critics. In doing so, Koestler took a stand that alienated him from former allies and exposed him to personal and professional risks. His courage to face the truth, no matter how uncomfortable, underscores the vital role of intellectual honesty in the pursuit of justice and understanding. This lesson is particularly relevant in today's world, where misinformation and echo chambers often distort reality. Intellectual honesty demands that we seek the truth, even when it challenges our beliefs or preferences. It requires the humility to admit when we're wrong and the courage to change our views in light of new evidence. Koestler's work offers a roadmap for cultivating this quality. In his essays, novels, and speeches, He emphasized the importance of questioning established narratives and approaching every issue with an open and critical mind. His commitment to truth extended beyond politics to science, philosophy, and even metaphysics. In The Ghost in the Machine, for example, he explored the limitations of reductionist thinking in understanding human behavior, challenging dominant scientific paradigms of his time. To practice intellectual honesty in our daily lives, we must develop habits of self-reflection and critical analysis. This begins with acknowledging our biases and recognizing how they influence our perceptions. For instance, when engaging in discussions or debates, we should be willing to listen to opposing viewpoints without dismissing them outright. By focusing on evidence rather than emotions or preconceived notions, we create a foundation for more meaningful and productive dialogues. Moreover, intellectual honesty isn't just an individual pursuit, it's a collective responsibility. In professional settings, it means holding ourselves and others accountable for upholding ethical standards. In education, it involves teaching students to think critically rather than simply memorizing facts. And in society at large, it calls for fostering a culture where questioning and curiosity are valued over conformity. Koestler's life reminds us that intellectual honesty is not always comfortable or convenient. It can lead to difficult realizations about ourselves, our communities, and the systems we live in. But it is precisely this discomfort that drives growth and progress. By committing to intellectual honesty, we align ourselves with a deeper sense of purpose and contribute to a more truthful and equitable world. 3. Resist totalitarianism in all forms. Arthur Koestler's life was shaped by his encounters with totalitarianism, making his resistance to oppressive systems one of his most significant legacies. Having lived through the rise of both fascism and communism in Europe, he was acutely aware of the psychological, social, and political forces that enable authoritarian regimes to thrive. His works, particularly Darkness at Noon and The Yogi and the Commissar, dissect these systems with a keen understanding of how they manipulate individuals and societies to sustain power. Koestler recognized that totalitarianism is not limited to overtly oppressive regimes. It begins in the subtle erosion of freedoms and the normalization of conformity. In Darkness at Noon, he explores the moral dilemmas faced by Rubashov, a fictional Soviet revolutionary who becomes a victim of the very system he helped build. Through Rubashov's internal conflicts, Koestler exposes the psychological toll of living under a regime that demands absolute loyalty at the expense of individual morality. The novel also illustrates how fear, propaganda, and the suppression of dissent work together to sustain totalitarian control. This lesson transcends its historical context, offering timeless insights into how authoritarian tendencies can arise in any era or setting. Totalitarianism can manifest not only in governments but also in workplaces, social groups, and even within families. Koestler's critique reminds us to be vigilant against any system or culture that suppresses freedom of thought, enforces blind obedience, or punishes dissent. The psychological roots of totalitarianism. Koestler believed that understanding totalitarianism required an exploration of human psychology. He argued that fear and uncertainty drive people to seek the comfort of authoritarian structures, which promise order and security in exchange for submission. These systems exploit our natural desire for belonging and certainty, making it easier for individuals to rationalize their complicity. Koestler also emphasized the role of propaganda in shaping public perception. Totalitarian regimes use misinformation to create an alternate reality where their authority appears justified and dissent seems dangerous or even treasonous. This manipulation not only silences opposition but also erodes the critical thinking skills necessary for recognizing the truth. The moral imperative to resist. For Koestler, resisting totalitarianism was not just an intellectual stance but a moral imperative. He believed that silence in the face of oppression was a form of complicity. This conviction drove him to speak out against both fascism and communism, despite the personal and professional risks involved. His writings serve as a call to action, urging readers to confront injustice wherever it appears. One of Koestler's key insights is that resistance begins with preserving the freedom of thought. Even in the most oppressive environments, individuals retain the capacity to question authority and envision alternatives. This inner freedom is the foundation of all external resistance, as it enables people to recognize the moral and practical flaws in authoritarian systems. Applying the lesson today. In the modern world, totalitarian tendencies can take more subtle forms. They may appear in the guise of corporate monopolies that stifle innovation, political movements that demonize opposition, or social norms that discourage individuality. Koestler's life and work remind us to challenge these forces by remaining vigilant and informed. Practicing this lesson requires a commitment to critical thinking and civic engagement. We can resist authoritarian tendencies by supporting free speech, protecting the rights of marginalized groups, and holding leaders accountable. At a personal level, it involves standing up against bullying, advocating for fairness, and encouraging open dialogue in our communities. Koestler's experiences also highlight the importance of solidarity in resistance. While individual acts of defiance are vital, collective action amplifies their impact. By working together, people can create a stronger counterforce against authoritarianism, whether it operates at the level of governments or within smaller systems. Conclusion. Arthur Koestler's resistance to totalitarianism was not just a reaction to the horrors of his time but a profound statement about the value of freedom, dignity, and individuality. His life teaches us that the fight against oppression is ongoing and that it requires both courage and vigilance. By recognizing and challenging authoritarian tendencies in all their forms, we uphold the principles of justice and humanity that Koestler so deeply cherished. 4. Embrace complexity in human thought and behavior. Arthur Koestler's intellectual journey was marked by his exploration of the complexities of human thought, behavior, and existence. He believed that understanding humanity required us to move beyond simplistic explanations and embrace the interplay of logic, emotion, creativity, and instinct. In his groundbreaking work, The Act of Creation, Koestler analyzed the nature of creativity, demonstrating how innovation arises from the synthesis of disparate ideas, a process he called bisociation. This insight highlights the richness and intricacy of human cognition and serves as a guide for navigating both personal growth and societal challenges. Koestler's life itself reflected his fascination with complexity. As a writer, journalist, and philosopher, he tackled diverse subjects ranging from politics and science to metaphysics and psychology. His refusal to confine himself to a single discipline or ideology exemplifies the importance of a holistic approach to understanding the world. For Koestler, the richness of human experience lies in its contradictions and ambiguities, which defy reduction to binary categories or linear narratives. The multifaceted nature of creativity and thought. Koestler's concept of bisociation is particularly illuminating in understanding how complexity drives creativity. He argued that the most profound insights and breakthroughs occur when we connect seemingly unrelated ideas or fields. For instance, a scientific discovery might emerge from combining principles of physics with insights from biology, or a work of art may draw on historical themes while incorporating modern techniques. Koestler believed that fostering this type of interdisciplinary thinking was essential for both individual innovation and societal progress. This principle is evident in his own writing style. In The Sleepwalkers, a historical account of the development of cosmology, Koestler weaves together scientific analysis, philosophical reflection, and vivid storytelling. By doing so, he not only educates but also inspires readers to think more deeply about the interplay between science, culture, and human curiosity. Human behavior as a spectrum. Koestler also explored the complexity of human behavior, rejecting simplistic notions of good versus evil or rationality versus irrationality. He recognized that people are capable of both profound altruism and destructive cruelty, often within the same context. This duality is a central theme in his novel Darkness at Noon, where characters grapple with moral dilemmas that challenge their sense of identity and purpose. Koestler's portrayal of these struggles underscores the importance of empathy and self-awareness in understanding ourselves and others. He further examined this duality in The Ghost in the Machine, where he critiqued reductionist approaches to psychology and biology. Koestler argued that human behavior could not be fully explained by mechanistic models or simple cause-and-effect relationships. Instead, it required an appreciation of the intricate interplay between our biological instincts, emotional experiences, and rational thoughts. The value of complexity in decision-making. Koestler's emphasis on complexity has practical implications for decision-making. In both personal and professional contexts, simplistic solutions often fail to address the underlying nuances of a problem. For example, a political policy that focuses solely on economic growth might overlook its social and environmental consequences. Similarly, a personal decision based purely on logic might ignore the emotional and relational factors that contribute to long-term satisfaction. By embracing complexity, we can make more informed and balanced decisions. This involves considering multiple perspectives, weighing short-term and long-term consequences, and recognizing the interconnectedness of various factors. Koestler's interdisciplinary approach serves as a model for cultivating this mindset. Fostering complexity in modern life. In today's fast-paced world, where quick fixes and soundbite solutions dominate, Koestler's lesson is more relevant than ever. Embracing complexity requires us to resist the pressure to oversimplify issues for the sake of convenience or expediency. It also challenges us to be comfortable with ambiguity and uncertainty, which are inherent in complex systems. To apply this lesson, we can start by broadening our intellectual horizons. This might involve exploring topics outside our usual areas of interest, engaging with people from diverse backgrounds, or seeking out interdisciplinary collaborations. Additionally, we can cultivate habits of critical thinking and reflection, which enable us to analyze problems from multiple angles and uncover deeper insights. The broader impact of complexity. Koestler's celebration of complexity extends beyond individual growth to societal transformation. He believed that understanding and appreciating the multifaceted nature of human thought and behavior could foster greater empathy, innovation, and resilience. For example, recognizing the diversity of human experiences can help bridge cultural divides and promote more inclusive policies. Similarly, valuing complexity in education can inspire students to think creatively and adapt to the challenges of an ever-changing world. Conclusion. Arthur Koestler's life and work remind us that the richness of human existence lies in its complexity. By embracing this complexity, we can unlock new levels of understanding, creativity, and connection. Whether we are solving problems, making decisions, or simply navigating daily life, Koestler's insights encourage us to move beyond superficial explanations and engage with the deeper layers of reality. In doing so, we honor the full spectrum of human potential and contribute to a more thoughtful and compassionate world. 5. Acknowledge the limits of rationality. Arthur Koestler, a thinker deeply engaged with science, philosophy, and human behavior, emphasized the importance of rational thought while acknowledging its limitations. He argued that reason alone cannot fully account for the richness of human experience or guide us to ethical decisions. Rationality, while an invaluable tool, must be balanced with intuition, emotion, and moral insight to navigate life's complexities. This lesson is particularly evident in Koestler's The Ghost and the Machine, where he critiques reductionist approaches to understanding human behavior. He challenges the idea that humans are purely rational beings whose actions can be predicted through mechanistic models. Instead, he highlights the role of instinct, emotion, and subconscious processes in shaping our thoughts and actions. For Koestler, the interplay between these elements is what makes us uniquely human. The double-edged sword of rationality. Koestler recognized that rationality has been a driving force behind many of humanity's greatest achievements, from scientific discoveries to technological advancements. However, he also warned of its dangers when applied without consideration for human values and ethical principles. Rational thought, divorced from empathy and morality, can lead to destructive outcomes. This theme is powerfully explored in Darkness at Noon, where the protagonist, Rubashov, rationalizes atrocities in the name of ideological goals, only to realize the profound moral cost of his actions. This critique resonates in modern contexts, where the pursuit of efficiency and logic often overlooks the human consequences. For instance, decisions made purely on economic grounds might prioritize short-term gains over long-term well-being, leading to inequality and environmental degradation. Similarly, over-reliance on data and algorithms in decision-making can perpetuate biases and dehumanize individuals. Balancing rationality with intuition and emotion. Koestler believed that a balanced approach to decision-making involves integrating rational analysis with intuition and emotion. While rationality helps us evaluate options and predict outcomes, intuition provides a deeper, often subconscious understanding of complex situations. Emotion, meanwhile, connects us to our values and motivates us to act in ways that align with our ethical beliefs. For example, when faced with a career decision, rationality might lead us to choose the option with the highest salary or status. However, intuition might point us toward a path that feels more fulfilling, even if it defies conventional logic. Emotion, such as a sense of passion or a desire to make a positive impact, adds another layer of insight that rational analysis alone might overlook. Koestler's insights encourage us to view rationality as one part of a broader decision-making framework. By acknowledging its limitations, we can avoid the pitfalls of over-intellectualizing our choices and instead embrace the full spectrum of human cognition. The role of rationality in creativity and innovation. Another area where Koestler explored the limits of rationality is creativity. In the act of creation, he argues that innovation often arises from moments of insight that transcend logical reasoning. These eureka moments occur when the mind makes unexpected connections between seemingly unrelated ideas, a process Koestler called bisociation. This creative leap is not strictly rational but involves intuition and a willingness to embrace ambiguity. This perspective is particularly valuable in fields such as art, science, and entrepreneurship, where breakthroughs often require thinking outside conventional frameworks. Koestler's work reminds us that fostering creativity involves creating space for spontaneity and intuition, rather than relying solely on structured, logical processes. Practical applications of this lesson. To apply this lesson in daily life, we can start by recognizing situations where rationality alone might be insufficient. For instance, when resolving conflicts, a purely logical approach might focus on identifying a solution that benefits both parties. However, addressing the emotional undercurrents of the disagreement, such as feelings of hurt or mistrust, can lead to a deeper resolution. Another practical strategy is to develop mindfulness practices that help us tune into our intuition and emotions. Techniques such as meditation, journaling, or simply taking time to reflect can enhance our awareness of these aspects of our inner world, allowing us to integrate them more effectively into our decision-making. In professional settings, fostering a culture that values emotional intelligence and creative thinking alongside analytical skills can lead to more holistic and innovative outcomes. This might involve encouraging team members to share their gut feelings about a project or creating opportunities for brainstorming sessions where unconventional ideas are welcomed. Understanding rationality's limits in society. Koestler's critique of rationality also has broader implications for society. He cautioned against systems that prioritize logic and efficiency at the expense of human values. For example, economic models that treat individuals as purely rational actors fail to account for the emotional and social dimensions of human behavior. Similarly, policies that focus solely on measurable outcomes risk overlooking the intangible aspects of well-being, such as community cohesion or cultural heritage. By acknowledging the limits of rationality, we can create more compassionate and inclusive systems that reflect the complexity of human life. This involves not only designing policies that consider emotional and social factors but also fostering public discourse that values empathy and moral reasoning alongside data and logic. Conclusion. Arthur Koestler's reflections on rationality teach us that logic and reason, while powerful, are not sufficient on their own to navigate life's challenges. By balancing rational thought with intuition, emotion, and ethical considerations, we can make decisions that are not only effective but also meaningful. Koestler's insights invite us to embrace the full spectrum of human cognition, recognizing that our greatest strengths lie in the interplay of these diverse elements. 6. Seek truth over ideology. Arthur Koestler's life was a testament to the relentless pursuit of truth, even when it meant confronting deeply held beliefs or breaking away from established ideologies. His experiences with political movements, particularly his disillusionment with communism, illustrate the dangers of allowing ideology to overshadow reality. For Koestler, truth was not just an abstract ideal but a guiding principle essential for personal integrity, intellectual freedom, and societal progress. Koestler's commitment to truth was evident in his writings, where he exposed the moral and practical failures of authoritarian systems. His seminal novel Darkness at Noon is a scathing critique of Stalinism, drawing on his own experiences as a member of the Communist Party. Despite his initial enthusiasm for communism, Koestler came to see how rigid adherence to ideological dogma could justify atrocities and suppress dissent. This realization marked a turning point in his life, leading him to advocate for a more nuanced and evidence-based approach to understanding the world. The seductive power of ideology. Koestler recognized that ideologies, whether political, religious, or cultural, have a powerful appeal. They provide a sense of certainty and belonging, offering clear answers to complex questions and a framework for understanding the world. However, this same certainty can become a trap, leading individuals to ignore evidence that contradicts their beliefs or to justify unethical actions in the name of a greater cause. In Darkness at Noon, the protagonist Rubashov embodies the moral compromises that arise from blind loyalty to ideology. A committed revolutionary, Rubashov initially believes that individual sacrifices are justified for the collective good. However, as he faces betrayal and persecution by the very system he served, he begins to question the validity of these justifications. Through Rubashov's internal conflict, Koestler reveals the dangers of prioritizing ideological purity over critical thinking and moral responsibility. The courage to question beliefs. One of Koestler's most enduring lessons is the importance of questioning our own beliefs, even when it is uncomfortable or unpopular. This requires intellectual humility and a willingness to admit when we are wrong. Koestler himself demonstrated this courage by publicly renouncing communism, a decision that alienated him from former allies and subjected him to intense criticism. Yet he remained steadfast in his commitment to truth, believing that acknowledging mistakes was essential for personal growth and societal improvement. This lesson is particularly relevant in today's polarized world, where individuals often retreat into ideological echo chambers that reinforce their existing views. Koestler's life reminds us that true intellectual freedom comes from engaging with diverse perspectives and being open to changing our minds in light of new evidence. The role of truth in creativity and progress. Koestler also explored the relationship between truth and creativity, arguing that innovation often arises from challenging established paradigms. In The Act of Creation, he described how great discoveries and works of art emerge from the ability to see beyond conventional thinking and connect seemingly unrelated ideas. This process requires a commitment to seeking truth, even when it contradicts prevailing norms or challenges entrenched interests. By prioritizing truth over ideology, we can foster an environment that encourages curiosity, critical thinking, and innovation. This principle applies not only to scientific and artistic endeavors but also to social and political progress. For example, addressing complex issues such as climate change or economic inequality requires a willingness to confront uncomfortable truths and explore solutions that transcend ideological boundaries. Practical applications of seeking truth. Koestler's emphasis on truth has practical implications for both personal and collective decision-making. At an individual level, it involves cultivating habits of critical thinking, such as questioning assumptions, evaluating evidence, and seeking out diverse viewpoints. This might mean reading books or articles that challenge our beliefs, engaging in respectful debates with those who hold different opinions, or reflecting on our own biases and blind spots. In professional and societal contexts, seeking truth involves creating systems and cultures that value transparency, accountability, and evidence-based decision-making. For instance, businesses can prioritize ethical practices and honest communication over short-term profits, while governments can promote policies grounded in scientific research and public consultation. Koestler's lesson also highlights the importance of education in fostering a truth-oriented mindset. By teaching critical thinking skills, encouraging intellectual curiosity, and exposing students to diverse perspectives, educators can equip future generations to navigate a complex and rapidly changing world. Resisting the weaponization of truth. Koestler was acutely aware of how truth can be manipulated to serve ideological ends. Totalitarian regimes, in particular, are notorious for distorting reality through propaganda and censorship. Koestler's experiences under Nazi and Soviet rule informed his understanding of how misinformation can erode trust, suppress dissent, and consolidate power. To resist the weaponization of truth, we must remain vigilant against attempts to control information or silence opposing voices. This involves supporting free speech, protecting independent journalism, and developing media literacy skills to discern reliable sources from misinformation. By doing so, we uphold the principles of transparency and accountability that are essential for democratic societies. Conclusion. Arthur Koestler's life and work exemplify the transformative power of seeking truth over ideology. His willingness to question beliefs, confront uncomfortable realities, and prioritize evidence over dogma serves as an enduring reminder of the importance of intellectual integrity. In a world often divided by rigid ideologies, Koestler's lesson invites us to embrace complexity, remain open-minded, and pursue truth as a guiding principle in our lives. By doing so, we not only deepen our understanding of the world but also contribute to a more thoughtful, just, and innovative society. 7. Recognize the interconnectedness of all things. Arthur Koestler's intellectual journey was profoundly shaped by his recognition of the interconnectedness of all things. Whether exploring the natural world, human society, or the inner workings of the mind, he consistently emphasized the importance of understanding relationships and interdependencies. This insight lies at the heart of his work, where he sought to demonstrate that everything is part of a larger whole, and that breaking down complex phenomena into isolated parts often distorts the true nature of reality. In his writing, Koestler challenged reductionist approaches that separated knowledge into discrete categories or disciplines. He believed that a holistic perspective, one that acknowledges the interconnectedness of all aspects of life, was essential for solving the pressing challenges of the modern world. Koestler's exploration of this idea in works like The Ghost in the Machine and The Act of Creation provides a powerful framework for understanding the world and our place within it. The impact of reductionism on knowledge. Koestler's critique of reductionism is one of his most important contributions to intellectual thought. Reductionism, the idea that complex phenomena can be fully understood by breaking them down into their simplest components, has been a dominant force in science and philosophy. While reductionism has led to many important discoveries, Koestler argued that it also has significant limitations. He believed that understanding the complexity of the world requires recognizing the relationships between parts rather than focusing solely on the parts themselves. For instance, in The Ghost in the Machine, Koestler critiques the mechanistic view of the human mind, which treats consciousness and behavior as the mere product of brain processes. He argued that this view fails to capture the richness of human experience, which includes emotions, social interactions, and spiritual dimensions that cannot be reduced to biological functions. Koestler's holistic approach to understanding the mind encourages us to recognize that the mind and body are deeply interconnected and cannot be fully understood in isolation. The interconnectedness of nature and society. Koestler's recognition of interconnectedness also extended to the natural world and human society. He saw both as systems of complex interrelations, where changes in one part can have far-reaching effects. This idea mirrors ecological thinking, where the environment is viewed as a web of interconnected life forms, each influencing the others. Koestler was an early advocate for understanding human society in terms of systems, rather than as isolated individuals or groups. In The Act of Creation, Koestler discusses how creativity emerges from the interaction between different systems of thought. By recognizing patterns across different domains, such as art, science, and philosophy, humans can make connections that lead to innovation. This insight emphasizes that creativity and progress arise not in isolation but through the synthesis of ideas from multiple perspectives. Koestler's work in this area underscores the value of interdisciplinary thinking and the need to consider multiple facets of reality when solving complex problems. The role of interconnectedness in personal growth. On a more personal level, Koestler's recognition of interconnectedness also informs his ideas about self-awareness and personal growth. He believed that individuals cannot fully understand themselves without acknowledging the broader systems in which they exist, be they social, cultural, or psychological. Our actions and beliefs are shaped by the environments we inhabit, and understanding this interconnectedness can lead to greater empathy, self-compassion, and personal insight. For example, in his reflections on human behavior, Koestler emphasized the importance of understanding the psychological and emotional factors that influence decision-making. He argued that individuals often act based on subconscious drives and cultural conditioning, and that personal growth involves becoming more aware of these forces. By recognizing the interconnectedness of our inner and outer worlds, we can develop a deeper understanding of ourselves and make more informed, compassionate choices. Interconnectedness in a global context. Koestler's emphasis on interconnectedness also had political and social implications. In his later works, he warned of the dangers of fragmentation and isolationism in a rapidly changing, interconnected world. He saw the global challenges of the 20th century, such as war, environmental degradation, and social inequality, as symptoms of humanity's failure to recognize the interdependence of nations, cultures, and ecosystems. Koestler argued that solutions to these problems could only be found by embracing a global perspective and working together across national, cultural, and disciplinary boundaries. For instance, the rise of nationalism and the rejection of international cooperation in the mid-20th century was a source of deep concern for Koestler. He believed that the future of humanity depended on its ability to overcome divisions and recognize the shared interests of all people. This message remains relevant today, as we face global challenges such as climate change, economic inequality, and political polarization. Koestler's call for greater global cooperation and understanding encourages us to think beyond our immediate concerns and recognize our collective responsibility for the well-being of the planet and its inhabitants. The practical application of interconnectedness. To apply the lesson of interconnectedness in our lives, we must begin by recognizing the relationships between various aspects of our personal and professional worlds. Whether in our work, relationships, or daily activities, it's essential to acknowledge that actions in one area of life can have ripple effects across others. For example, a decision made at work might affect our home life, and our personal health can impact our social interactions. At a societal level, embracing interconnectedness means fostering systems of collaboration and cooperation. This involves promoting policies that address the interconnected nature of social, economic, and environmental issues. For instance, tackling climate change requires not only environmental policies but also social and economic reforms that address inequality and promote sustainable practices. In our personal lives, recognizing interconnectedness can lead to more mindful living. This might involve making conscious choices about how we consume resources, how we engage with others, and how we balance our own needs with the needs of the larger community. Koestler's holistic approach encourages us to see ourselves as part of a larger web of relationships, where every action and decision has significance. Conclusion. Arthur Koestler's recognition of the interconnectedness of all things offers a profound lesson for navigating the complexities of modern life. Whether in our personal development, our approach to problem solving, or our efforts to address global challenges, embracing interconnectedness leads to a more holistic, compassionate, and effective way of living. Koestler's insights remind us that everything in life is linked, and that true understanding comes from seeing the connections between the different parts of the whole. By adopting this mindset, we can create more harmonious relationships, solve problems more creatively, and contribute to a more interconnected and sustainable world. 8. Embrace the complexity of the human condition. One of Arthur Koestler's most profound insights is the importance of embracing the complexity of the human condition. Throughout his life, Koestler grappled with the contradictions, paradoxes, and struggles inherent in human existence. His personal experiences and intellectual pursuits revealed that human nature is far from simple, and understanding it requires both depth and nuance. This lesson is central to much of his work, where he examined the tensions between individual freedom and social responsibility, the human quest for meaning, and the perennial conflict between idealism and reality. Koestler's life journey was marked by a series of profound personal and intellectual shifts. From his early enthusiasm for revolutionary political movements to his disillusionment with totalitarian regimes, his experiences shaped his views on the human condition. He was acutely aware of the moral ambiguities and complexities that define human life, and he believed that embracing these complexities is essential for both personal growth and societal progress. The paradox of freedom and responsibility. One of the key themes in Koestler's exploration of the human condition is the tension between freedom and responsibility. On the one hand, humans have an innate desire for autonomy and the freedom to make choices. On the other hand, freedom comes with the burden of responsibility, both to oneself and to others. Koestler believed that individuals must learn to navigate this paradox, recognizing that freedom without responsibility can lead to selfishness and harm, while responsibility without freedom can result in oppression and despair. In Darkness at Noon, Koestler explored this tension through the character of Rubashov, who struggles with the moral dilemmas of being a committed revolutionary. Rubashov's internal conflict is a metaphor for the broader human struggle between the desire for individual freedom and the collective responsibility to create a just society. The novel's portrayal of Rubashov's psychological torment highlights how human beings must constantly negotiate the balance between personal desires and social obligations. The search for meaning in an uncertain world. Another central aspect of Koestler's understanding of the human condition is the search for meaning. Koestler, like many intellectuals of his time, was deeply influenced by the existential crises of the 20th century. The collapse of traditional belief systems, the rise of secularism, and the horrors of war and totalitarianism left many people grappling with a profound sense of meaninglessness. Koestler himself was a product of these turbulent times, and he struggled with the question of how to find meaning in a world that often seemed devoid of it. His search for meaning was not confined to religious or philosophical systems but extended to the realms of science, politics, and the arts. In works like The Act of Creation, Koestler examined how creativity and the pursuit of knowledge can offer a sense of purpose, even in the absence of grand religious or ideological narratives. He believed that by engaging with the world in a thoughtful, creative way, individuals could find meaning in the act of creation itself. Idealism versus reality. Koestler's life was shaped by his passionate commitment to various political and intellectual causes, from his early involvement with communism to his eventual disillusionment with it. His experiences led him to develop a profound understanding of the tension between idealism and reality. He recognized that many of the world's most noble causes, whether political, social, or religious, are often driven by idealistic visions of a better world. However, these ideals can easily become distorted when confronted with the harsh realities of human nature and political power. In The Yogi and the Commissar, Koestler contrasted the spiritual idealism of Eastern philosophies with the political idealism of Marxism, showing how both systems, despite their noble aspirations, can lead to authoritarianism and oppression. He argued that the human tendency to cling to idealized visions of society often blinds people to the practical challenges and moral compromises involved in implementing these ideals. The role of science and rationality. Despite his criticism of ideologies, Koestler remained a strong proponent of science and rationality. However, his view of science was not as a simple, objective pursuit of truth, but as a complex and often contradictory enterprise. He recognized that science, like human nature itself, is not immune to biases, limitations, and ethical dilemmas. In The Ghost and the Machine, Koestler explored the complexities of human consciousness, arguing that the mechanistic view of the mind was insufficient to explain the richness of human experience. He emphasized the need for a more integrated approach to understanding the mind, one that acknowledges both the scientific and subjective dimensions of human experience. Koestler's perspective on science reflects his broader view of the human condition, that complexity, contradiction, and paradox are intrinsic to both human nature and the pursuit of knowledge. The shadow of the past. Koestler's life was profoundly affected by the historical events of the 20th century, including the rise of fascism, the Spanish Civil War, and the Stalinist purges. These experiences shaped his understanding of the human condition, particularly the ways in which history and politics intersect with individual lives. In his work, Koestler often explored how the trauma of the past continues to shape the present, both on a personal and societal level. For Koestler, the shadow of the past was not just a historical phenomenon, but a psychological one. He argued that individuals must confront the ghosts of their pasts in order to move forward, whether these ghosts take the form of personal regrets, societal injustices, or ideological betrayals. This theme is particularly evident in his autobiographical writings, where he reflects on the moral compromises he made during his involvement with communist movements and his subsequent journey of self-discovery and intellectual transformation. Embracing the ambiguities of life. Koestler's life and work ultimately teach us that the human condition cannot be reduced to simple formulas or answers. Instead, it is marked by ambiguity, contradiction, and complexity. The challenge, as Koestler saw it, is not to resolve these contradictions but to learn how to live with them. This means accepting that human existence is filled with paradoxes, freedom and responsibility, idealism and realism, science and mystery, and that these tensions are what make life both challenging and meaningful. By embracing the complexity of the human condition, we can develop a more nuanced understanding of ourselves and the world around us. This understanding allows us to make better decisions, engage more thoughtfully with others, and contribute to the creation of a more just and compassionate society. Koestler's work encourages us to resist simplistic solutions and to accept the ambiguities of life as an essential part of the human experience. Conclusion. Arthur Koestler's exploration of the human condition invites us to recognize the complexity and contradictions that define our lives. Rather than seeking easy answers or simple solutions, Koestler's lessons encourage us to engage with life's complexities in a thoughtful and compassionate way. Whether navigating the tension between freedom and responsibility, confronting the search for meaning in an uncertain world, or grappling with the idealism versus reality of our political and social aspirations, Koestler's insights remind us that human nature is multifaceted and often paradoxical. By embracing these complexities, we can live more fully and contribute to a richer, more empathetic world. 9. Value critical thinking and intellectual independence. Arthur Koestler's commitment to intellectual independence and the value of critical thinking were central themes in both his life and his work. Throughout his career, he emphasized the importance of questioning established ideas, resisting dogma, and thinking for oneself. His own intellectual journey was marked by a series of shifts in his beliefs and affiliations, which reflects his constant reevaluation of ideas and his unwillingness to accept simplistic or authoritarian views. Koestler's personal experiences, ranging from his involvement with leftist political movements to his disillusionment with them, shaped his view that intellectual independence is essential for both personal growth and societal progress. His works often challenge the reader to confront their own assumptions and consider alternative perspectives. In a world increasingly dominated by ideologies, Koestler believed that the ability to think critically and independently was more important than ever. The importance of questioning established ideas. One of Koestler's core beliefs was that critical thinking requires questioning established ideas. Throughout history, people have often accepted dominant ideologies or scientific theories without fully examining them, whether due to social pressures, intellectual conformity, or blind faith. Koestler argued that true intellectual progress arises not from blindly following authority but from actively engaging with and challenging accepted knowledge. In The Act of Creation, Koestler delves into the creative process, showing that great breakthroughs often come from questioning conventional wisdom and looking at problems from new angles. Whether in science, art, or philosophy, Koestler believed that it is only by stepping outside the boundaries of established thought that we can make meaningful advancements. He saw creativity as an inherently rebellious act, one that disrupts the status quo and introduces fresh ways of understanding the world. This lesson of questioning established ideas is particularly important in an era where information is constantly being produced and consumed. In today's world, where echo chambers and confirmation bias often dominate public discourse, Koestler's message to think critically and independently is more relevant than ever. Intellectual independence and the dangers of ideological conformity. Koestler's personal experiences with ideological movements, particularly his early involvement with communism, shaped his understanding of the dangers of intellectual conformity. He was initially drawn to Marxist ideals as a young man, believing that they offered a path to a better, more just world. However, over time, he became disillusioned with the authoritarianism and dogmatism that characterized many Marxist movements, particularly under Stalinist rule. In his memoirs and later writings, Koestler reflects on the pressures he faced as a member of a political ideology that demanded unwavering loyalty and adherence to party lines. He came to recognize that ideological conformity often leads to the suppression of dissenting voices and the erosion of intellectual freedom. Koestler's own journey, from Marxism to skepticism to a broader humanism, reflects his belief in the necessity of intellectual independence, even when it means breaking with mainstream movements or ideologies. This experience made Koestler acutely aware of the dangers of ideological thinking. He warned that when ideas become dogmas, whether in politics, religion, or science, they limit our ability to think critically and make informed decisions. Ideologies, in Koestler's view, can become intellectual prisons, preventing individuals from seeing the world as it truly is and stifling the pursuit of knowledge. The role of critical thinking in personal growth. Critical thinking is not just a tool for intellectual exploration, it is also a vital part of personal growth. Koestler's own life was marked by a continuous process of self-examination and intellectual evolution. He believed that individuals must engage in critical self-reflection in order to grow as human beings. This involves questioning one's own assumptions, recognizing biases, and being open to new ideas. In his works, Koestler often emphasized the need for intellectual humility, the recognition that no one has all the answers and that learning is an ongoing process. This approach encourages individuals to remain open to change and growth, rather than clinging rigidly to old beliefs. Koestler's own intellectual development, which saw him evolve from a committed Marxist to a more nuanced and independent thinker, serves as a model for embracing the challenges and uncertainties that come with critical self-reflection. Koestler also emphasized the importance of intellectual honesty, which involves confronting uncomfortable truths and acknowledging the limitations of one's own knowledge. He warned against the temptation to adopt ideologies or beliefs simply because they offer comforting answers or a sense of belonging. Instead, he advocated for a commitment to truth, even when it is difficult or unsettling. Challenging conventional wisdom in science. In addition to politics and philosophy, Koestler was deeply concerned with the role of science and its relationship to intellectual independence. As a writer and thinker, he sought to challenge the prevailing scientific paradigms of his time, particularly those that reduced human consciousness to purely mechanical or biological explanations. His book The Ghost in the Machine critiques the mechanistic view of the human mind, arguing that it fails to account for the richness of human experience. Koestler believed that science, while powerful, should never be immune to scrutiny or challenge. He was critical of reductionist approaches that oversimplified complex phenomena and disregarded the subjective dimensions of human existence. His work on the philosophy of science highlighted the importance of maintaining intellectual independence within the scientific community, where prevailing theories often become entrenched and resistant to new ideas. By questioning the established scientific narratives of his time, Koestler contributed to broader discussions about the nature of consciousness, the limits of scientific explanation, and the need for a more integrated understanding of human beings. His critique of reductionism and his emphasis on the complexity of the human mind remain influential in contemporary debates about the intersection of science, philosophy, and human experience. The value of intellectual independence in the modern world. In today's world, where information is abundant and easily accessible, intellectual independence is more crucial than ever. With the rise of social media, 24-hour news cycles, and the increasing polarization of public discourse, it has become increasingly difficult to maintain a clear and independent perspective. Koestler's insistence on critical thinking encourages individuals to engage with information thoughtfully, question assumptions, and resist the pressure to conform to popular opinions or ideologies. Moreover, intellectual independence is essential for addressing the complex challenges of the modern world. Whether dealing with political polarization, climate change, or global health crises, the ability to think critically and independently allows individuals to make informed decisions and contribute to meaningful solutions. Koestler's lessons on intellectual independence remind us that, in a world full of noise and competing narratives, the pursuit of truth requires both courage and clarity of thought. Conclusion. Arthur Koestler's commitment to critical thinking and intellectual independence offers a vital lesson for navigating the complexities of modern life. His own intellectual journey, marked by a willingness to question, evolve, and resist ideological conformity, serves as an example of the power of independent thought. In a world where information is often filtered through ideological lenses and where conformity is frequently rewarded, Koestler's message to think critically, question established ideas, and value intellectual independence is more important than ever. By embracing these principles, we can cultivate a more thoughtful, open-minded, and intellectually honest society. 10. Confront the darkness within and embrace self-transformation. Arthur Koestler's work reveals a profound understanding of the human psyche, particularly the darker aspects of our nature. His life and writings emphasize the importance of confronting the darker, often hidden parts of ourselves in order to foster true self-transformation. Koestler believed that personal growth and intellectual integrity require individuals to confront their own fears, biases, and moral failings rather than deny or repress them. Only through this confrontation, he argued, could individuals achieve greater self-awareness, moral clarity, and a deeper understanding of their role in the world. Throughout his life, Koestler struggled with his own personal demons. His journey through ideological commitments, psychological crises, and moral dilemmas left him with a complex understanding of the darkness that can reside in every human being. He believed that in order to live authentically and meaningfully, one must not shy away from the uncomfortable truths about one's own character and past but instead engage with them in a way that leads to healing and self-realization. The darkness within, acknowledging our flaws. Koestler often explored the shadowy aspects of the human psyche, which he viewed as an integral part of personal development. He argued that each person has a dark side, made up of repressed desires, unresolved traumas, and hidden fears. These elements of the psyche are often ignored or denied because they are uncomfortable to confront. However, Koestler believed that failing to acknowledge this darkness ultimately hinders personal growth and contributes to societal dysfunction. In his novel Darkness at Noon, Koestler illustrated the devastating effects of ideological blindness and self-deception. The protagonist, Rubashov, becomes trapped in a totalitarian system that forces him to betray his own ideals and moral compass. Rubashov's downfall is a result of his inability to confront the moral contradictions within himself. Koestler used this character to show how the refusal to acknowledge one's darker nature can lead to self-destruction. For Koestler, confronting our flaws and contradictions is not about self-flagellation but about accepting that these darker aspects of our nature are part of being human. By acknowledging them, we can begin to understand ourselves more fully and take steps toward personal transformation. Facing guilt and regret. A significant part of confronting the darkness within involves facing our past actions, particularly those we regret. Koestler's own life was marked by moments of guilt and regret, especially concerning his early political involvement. As a young man, he had fervently embraced communism, only to later reject it after seeing its totalitarian consequences. His subsequent disillusionment led to a period of deep reflection and self-criticism, as he grappled with his role in supporting an ideology that had caused immense harm. In his autobiography, The Invisible Writing, Koestler openly confronts his past, acknowledging his mistakes and misjudgments. Rather than denying or suppressing these memories, he reflected on them with intellectual honesty. Koestler's approach suggests that true self-transformation begins with accepting responsibility for one's past actions and using those experiences as a foundation for personal growth. In order to transcend feelings of guilt and regret, Koestler advocated for self-compassion and the ability to learn from one's mistakes. The process of confronting guilt, he believed, involves coming to terms with past actions while recognizing the possibility for change. It is through this reconciliation that individuals can move forward with a clearer sense of purpose and moral integrity. The role of ideological disillusionment in self-transformation. Koestler's own intellectual evolution provides a powerful example of the process of self-transformation through ideological disillusionment. As a young man, Koestler was deeply committed to revolutionary Marxist ideals. However, his experiences during the Spanish Civil War and his later disillusionment with Stalinism led him to reassess and ultimately reject these beliefs. Koestler's shift away from Marxism was not just an intellectual decision but a deeply personal one. His experience of ideological betrayal forced him to confront the emotional and psychological consequences of his former beliefs. He came to understand that his adherence to an ideological system had been motivated by a desire for meaning and a sense of belonging, rather than a commitment to truth. Through this process of disillusionment, Koestler realized that personal transformation requires an openness to challenging one's own deepest convictions. He believed that individuals who hold rigid ideologies are often blind to the complexities of reality and are more likely to repeat past mistakes. In order to grow and evolve, it is essential to question one's beliefs, even those that form the foundation of one's identity. Healing the inner conflicts. Confronting the darkness within is not only about acknowledging our flaws and past mistakes, but also about healing the internal conflicts that arise from them. Koestler was acutely aware of the psychological toll that unresolved inner conflicts can take on a person. In his writings, he explored the tensions between different aspects of the self, including the rational and emotional, the idealistic and the pragmatic. In The Yogi and the Commissar, Koestler explored the conflict between two contrasting worldviews, the spiritual idealism of Eastern philosophies and the political idealism of Marxism. Both systems, while noble in their aspirations, often led to authoritarianism and moral compromise. Through this juxtaposition, Koestler highlighted the inner conflicts faced by individuals who are torn between competing ideals and desires. Healing these conflicts, according to Koestler, requires a form of psychological integration. This means accepting the contradictions within oneself and finding ways to reconcile them in a way that is authentic and constructive. Koestler's own journey of self-transformation was marked by a deepening sense of self-awareness and the gradual reconciliation of his past ideological commitments with a more nuanced understanding of human nature. The necessity of self-reflection for growth. Self-reflection was central to Koestler's approach to personal transformation. Throughout his life, he engaged in deep introspection, often revisiting past events and examining his own motivations and actions. This process of self-examination allowed him to gain insights into the deeper layers of his psyche and make conscious decisions about how to move forward. Koestler believed that self-reflection is not just about looking back at the past, but also about actively shaping the future. By examining our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors, we can develop a clearer sense of our values, goals, and desires. This self-awareness is essential for making meaningful changes in our lives and for contributing to the greater good of society. In his book The Lotus and the Robot, Koestler explored the relationship between Eastern spiritual practices and Western scientific thought. He found that Eastern meditation and introspection offered valuable tools for deep self-reflection, which could help individuals understand their inner nature and achieve greater psychological balance. By embracing self-reflection, Koestler believed individuals could transform their inner darkness into a source of strength and wisdom. The path to self-transformation, acceptance and action. For Koestler, the path to self-transformation involves both acceptance and action. Acceptance means recognizing that we are flawed and that our darkness is a part of who we are. It also means accepting the fact that personal growth is a continuous process, one that requires patience and perseverance. However, acceptance alone is not enough. Koestler argued that true transformation requires action. Once we have confronted our inner darkness, we must take concrete steps to change our behavior, mindset, and attitudes. This might involve changing how we relate to others, how we engage with the world, or how we pursue our goals. Koestler's emphasis on action is reflected in his own life, where he constantly sought new ways to challenge himself intellectually, morally, and emotionally. By acting on his newfound understanding of himself, he was able to evolve into a more compassionate, self-aware individual. He encouraged others to do the same, by facing their own darkness and using it as a catalyst for positive change. Conclusion. Arthur Koestler's lesson on confronting the darkness within and embracing self-transformation is one of the most powerful and deeply human messages in his work. By facing our flaws, past mistakes, and inner conflicts, we can achieve a deeper understanding of ourselves and move toward personal growth. Koestler's life and writings show us that true transformation requires not just intellectual change but emotional and psychological integration. By accepting our darkness and using it as a source of strength, we can begin the journey toward becoming more fully realized human beings, capable of making meaningful contributions to the world around us.